Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to recognize the Fight for 15. Can all of you stand up that are here? Thank you for being the leading edge of the labor movement and getting us all off of our couches and out in the streets. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Caleb Jennings, who is the lead organizer for the Fight for 15 here in Chicago.
Yeah, my name is Caleb Jennings. I'm the director of the Chicago Fight for 15, and I thought I would give a little context to the campaign because I think often folks think it's just a minimum wage campaign, right? And so I always think it's important to take a step back and talk about why this campaign was formed, why it started. So if you look back to 2012, and before 2012, but we recognized income inequality is out of whack. We had the Occupy movement that rose up, really putting income inequality front and center in the debate and the conversation. For the first time in my lifetime, it was on, having conversations about income inequality in the mainstream media, right? And what we recognized as organizers with SEIU was that the best way, one way to attack income inequality is to raise wages. And the best way to raise wages is to organize the workers that need a raise to make a demand, take action, and fight for it, right? And so what happened was, in November of 2012, less than 200 fast food workers in the city of New York walked off the job, went on strike, and demanded 15 and the right to have a union. And that was really the spark of a movement where then what happened in New York, it then spread to the Midwest. Chicago, following that November, in April, Chicago workers went on strike, as well as workers in Milwaukee, St. Louis, Detroit, and then it spread from coast to coast. So also just some context too, if you think about the climate then, right? When we said 15 in 2012, did folks think that was realistic? Hell no. Like President Obama came out saying, I'm for $9 an hour, right? And they called him a socialist, right? So I mean, if you think about the political climate at that time, people thought we were crazy to say 15. Our friends, some of you in this room probably thought it was crazy to say 15. I'm just saying, like, we had a lot of folks that were like, wow, that's a bold demand. But what we can say today is that since this campaign has started, 22 million working folks have gotten a raise of $1 or more since. That's over $40 billion that are in working people's pockets as a result of this campaign. And then we could say concretely that over 10 million workers are on the path to 15 right now, right? And I'm a union organizer. I bargain contracts, and we've been in nickel and dime negotiations, fighting over quarters, fighting over, we've gone on strike for 25 cents. So workers are winning dollar raises. That's significant, especially if you're at the lowest pay scale, at the minimum wage in this country. And then also just last week, I don't know if you all heard, Target announced that they're going to 15, right? So now they say it has nothing to do with this campaign. I don't know where they got that number, but right? But clearly, there's momentum, and we are confident that we're going to win 15. We're winning on the wages, right? But that's happening. Right now, all the gubernatorial candidates in Illinois, they're elbowing their way, saying they're all for 15. That's become easy now. It's mainstream now to be for 15. But for us, really, though, the other piece that's critical is that this isn't a minimum wage campaign. This is a union organizing campaign. And that's the piece that we need to bring home, is to win the union for fast food workers in this country. So our focus going forward in the Fight for 15, so we've been campaigning since 2012. We've broken through on the issue of $15 an hour. Now our focus is to break through, just like how crazy it was to think workers are going to make $15 an hour, going from $7.75 to $15 an hour. how crazy of an idea that was? People think it's crazy right now. Fast food workers having a union, that's crazy. Well, guess what? We're about to like prove the crazy to be reality because fast food workers are organizing. They're gonna win their union. And you know, what I would like to do right now is I would like to introduce Ashley Bruce. Ashley Bruce is a McDonald's worker. She's a leader in the fight for 15. She's gone on strike at least 10 times to demand 15. And I want to turn it over to her because she's really what this is about.
My name is Ashley Bruce. I'm a fast food worker at McDonald's in Chicago. I've been with the Fight for 15 for about 3.5 years, so like pretty much when it started in 2012 and stuff. Like Caleb said, I've been on strike for about 10 times. It's you know, it's a lot of fun being on strike and stuff. You get to meet a lot of new people. You get to see other people that's outside of the state of Illinois and to see what they struggle is. Like we've been to Detroit. We see how what their struggle is like and everything. So it's like I said, it's real interesting. So me personally, I joined the Fight for 15 because I want to make a difference with my brothers because I have younger siblings. I'm the oldest child. And I just want them to be able to work somewhere where they don't have to worry about struggling, you know what I'm saying? Because I know it's a lot of parents out here that's struggling, trying to provide for their children and everything, like with the home health care, child care, stuff like that. A lot of people can't afford that. And working at McDonald's, getting that $15 an hour and union rights, we definitely feel like they can afford it. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I work at McDonald's and I know what they bring home every night. McDonald's make over at least $10,000 every day just based off customers that come in and ordering food. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people always say that we have to do what the customer wants, but they want us to please their customer, but they can't please their workers by giving us the money that we deserve. We worth way more than $10 an hour, $11 an hour. They think that just because they're doing the 15 cent each year, that it's gonna make someone happy. Because at the end of the day, you do that 15 cent, yeah, we gonna see our check, but then we gotta worry about the government taking money from us for stuff that we don't have nothing to do with right now. So they taking all the money from us. Then you got people that's trying to go back to school like me, can't afford it. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you all can hear it, but I'm sick right now. I can't go to the emergency room or the doctor because I have no health insurance because I can't afford it. So it's like they want us to do so much and pay us so little. The reason why I say we need a union in McDonald's is because it's a lot of things that happen in McDonald's behind those counters that no one knows about. For instance, like, one of my coworkers burned himself on the grill. And can anyone tell me what they will tell you to put on your burn? They tell you to put mustard on your burn and walk, and that's it. One of my fellow fast food worker friends, she actually went through a sexual assault thing, I believe, and they terminated her because they didn't want her to use that against them, but she ended up winning what she needed and everything. And then it also goes to the bisexual, lesbian, transgenders. They have a lot going on too. Little do we know, like one of my close friends that's a transgender, well, 3 of them actually. One of them was telling me that when they was at work, somebody had asked them to, no, it wasn't one of the workers. I think they stayed in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. When I spoke about them a couple months ago in front of the McDonald's, someone had asked them, go in the bathroom to see if he or she sits down or if she stands up, go back there and touch it to see what it is. You can't use the bathroom in the public restroom, you have to go in the janitor's, the closet and stuff like that. So even though we have it hard, they have it 10 times worse because they have to try to, defend themselves, and it's hard when people are so much against the things that they do. I just want to, end my statement by saying this. We fighting for a cause and we fighting for a reason. We fighting for, children like them can make a difference when they get older so they can be able to pay for certain things when they get, as they progress throughout the year. So we need solidarity, no justice, no peace. Thank you.
Yo estuve enferma y le pedí un día de descanso y me obligó a que venga a trabajar.
So I was sick and I asked for a day off, but he told me I still had to come into work.
Entonces él me dice que mejor me dé un tiro en la cabeza.
And he said it was better for me just to shoot myself in the head. Eso es ridículo.
Francisco, escucha, estamos en la lucha. Francisco, escucha, estamos en la lucha.
Exijo que más respeto y que aquí pare el abuso verbal. Merecemos respeto. Nosotros somos las mujeres del corazón de McDonald's. McDonald's y nosotros no es nada.
My name is Carmen. My name is Carmen. I work at McDonald's, and I'm here asking Francisco to stop the verbal abuse. We are the heart and soul of McDonald's, and in honor of International Women's Day, I'm asking you to stop the verbal abuse.
That's right.
What happened? What happened? Tell me. ¿Quieres decir su historia? ¿De qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó?
Oh, lo que pasa es que yo soy enferma de diabetes. Le pedí un día más de descanso. Me dijo que mejor me dé un tiro en la cabeza.
So she asked for, she was sick, she has a diabetic episode, she was throwing up, and she has to go home. And instead of going home, he said she just put a bullet in your head.
Estoy aquí con ustedes, que está el pueblo unido, pero lo que exigimos es igualdad, respeto y horas flexibles. ¿Por qué? Porque tengo un problema con Erika González. Mi nombre es Patricia Román. Her name is Patricia Román. She works at McDonald's. Her family works there too, her son. She says that she wants equality, respect, and hours also, and not to them, for them not to change the schedule all the time.
Y queremos fuera Erika González.
She wants Erika González to be out of there. She's a manager. And also
César González.
And César González too. She wants him out. Fuera! Out of here!
$368 million of taxpaying dollars go to fast food workers here in Illinois that depend on public assistance. That money could go to our healthcare system, to the 50 schools that closed here in Chicago. It's money that has been misappropriated, when if we receive $15 an hour in union rights, we won't have to depend on public assistance.
If we had $368 million to invest in our community, we'd confront the housing affordability crisis in the northern suburbs. People who grew up in Evanston can no longer afford to live there, nor can many of the fast food and service workers who have always resided in the community where they've worked. We would pour funding into homeless services, mental health centers, re-entry job training programs, and fully funded affordable housing initiatives, including transitional group homes and housing for seniors.
My name is Ebony Stevenson, and I'm here representing the Grassroots Collaborative. $368 million. Sounds nice, right? So we would fund child care for all, centers for independent living, preventing and ending homelessness, home care for seniors and people living with disabilities, immigrant services, developing homegrown teachers, violence prevention, and the parent mentor program. Now that sounded like a lot, right? Did you think that added up to $368 million? Sounds like it was a little more, right? It was actually $546 million. Why was it $546 million? Because even though $368 million is a good start, but we need more than that, right? And where we gonna get it from? We need to get it from these billionaires like Ken Griffin, who is making all of this money profiting off of our blood, sweat, and tears, right?
That $368 million is definitely political, and it definitely, not only affects fast food workers, as I said before, it affects everybody. And we vote these politicians into office. We do it as the people, the citizens of our state and of this country, and yet we still have to be exploited by businesses, as one said earlier, privatizing their business, but socializing the cost of their food or the cost of the exploiting us, exploitation. And politicians know, politicians like, what is his name, Bruce Rauner, he knows. He's endorsed by Ken Griffin. It goes full circle. So $368 million, they know exactly where that money went. It didn't go to keep our schools open. It didn't go to end poverty. It didn't go to help racial violence and injustices in the city and in the state. So it's full circle.
Anytime you're exploiting people, the expectation, and this is just human nature, is that people are going to rebel, they're going to revolt, they're going to resist. And to maintain that status quo, you need enforcement. What the cops, what the police are in fact doing in these neighborhoods is enforcing an economic system that is based on exploitation. The low-wage business model is not sustainable in the long run. The ideology of economic marginalization produces resistance, and the way to keep that resistance down is to have heavy police presence. And so that's essentially what the police are doing in these neighborhoods. There's an economic angle to this. It's not just suppressing unruly people in the community and keeping safety and fighting crime. We need to understand where that crime is coming from. That crime is a byproduct of economic marginalization. When you keep wages down, people find a way to survive. What we're seeing in Ferguson and in New York City and in Cleveland, wherever these police actions have taken place, is a moment in which the public reacts to the murderous acts of police officers, and oftentimes that focus really prevents an overdue appreciation of a lot of the grievances that are part of these rebellions, these eruptions by community members. So it is important, obviously, to express outrage when a child and a young person, an unarmed black person is killed by police. But it's also, I think, it should be an opportunity for us to really think beyond that moment, to look at what has been happening in the United States over the last 25, 30 years in terms of the economic doctrine that has been hoisted on these communities. The shorthand for that is neoliberalism, an ideology that essentially worships profit maximization, the notion that corporate elites have every right to maximize profits and that workers have no rights, communities have no rights whatsoever.
Over 1 billion burgers sold, but your paycheck doesn't reflect that. You still must go out and get government assistance. Something is wrong with that picture. Their paychecks go up. They don't have to worry about Christmas dinner. You still have to make ends meet. You can't even afford to take your own family to where you work at. Something's wrong with that picture, and we're here to help.
What do we want? 15. When do we want it? Now. And if we can't get it, shut it down. If we can't get it, shut it down.
So what we have here is an economic system that has created conditions in many communities of color, conditions of economic desperation, and that economic desperation creates a reaction. People are going to survive when they face economic marginalization. That's just a fact of life. But then that requires police repression. It requires police presence. And police presence, the preponderance of police in these neighborhoods, is a way that the police comes in to re-establish order. But that disorder is created by economic conditions that are imposed by the system. Capitalism has always depended on the availability of cheap labor. And black slaves from Africa became an important feature in the advancement of capitalism. The slave system, where people worked for free. The U.S. capitalism, the evolution of capitalism in the United States, has to be seen in that sort of larger historical context, in which it needed a permanent supply of cheap, in fact, free labor. The unfortunate thing is that it required that poor white people also believe in racial supremacy, right? Even though you could argue that the presence of slavery had the effect of driving down wages. It put downward pressure on wages, even for those white people. But when you superficially get them to believe that they, in fact, are superior, and so it has always been important for white people in the United States, who are not part of the merchant class, to actually believe in racial supremacy, even when their conditions are declining and being impacted by cheap black labor.
Hands up, don't shoot! Hands up, don't shoot!
In this moment, we have officials reacting to what happened in Ferguson and what happened in New York and other places. They're reacting now. They're having the usual, commissions and, sort of gatherings in which, they're trying to figure out what the solutions are. And one thing that keeps coming up is this need to train police and to improve relationships between the community and the police, and to increase racial sensitivity. And this is really surface stuff. We just had a midterm election in which Democrats in particular were in full flight from a full-blown economic justice agenda. They talked about the minimum wage, but the issue of the minimum wage for Democrats has become more of a device to turn out voters during election than a heartfelt, a deeply felt ideology. It's no longer in their DNA to advocate for economic justice, because both parties had become captive to Wall Street, and have become captive to corporations. So we don't have a political party right now in the United States that is really fighting for economic justice for workers.
Eric Garner, Michael Brown, ain't no justice, shut it down. Eric Garner, Michael Brown.
There is an irony here in which we have an economic model that has depended on paying workers low wages. When you pay low wages, you're essentially impoverishing communities. That creates social instability. That social instability is manifested in high crimes and other social dysfunctions. The elites then respond not by addressing those economic problems, by, say, raising wages or allowing workers to form unions so they can improve their lives. They're responding with more police in those communities, right? And so we have what we're seeing today, these eruptions in Ferguson and in New York, people reacting to police brutality, that essentially is a function of how the elites have chosen. They're making a choice to respond to social instability with force, rather than economic policy that actually addresses the economic problem in the first place, the problem of economic marginalization. In the United States, have a low-wage business model that has been dominant now for the better part of 30 years. But when people are marginalized, they're going to react, and that reaction is manifested in many ways, among them crime. And that, of course, requires a police presence. It requires police repression to sort of enforce order. So the system itself creates conditions that then require it to bring in an over-militarized presence in these communities. And so it's a cycle that is self-perpetuating.